Hi, I'm Randy Robison. This is Life Today TV. I have a Heisman Trophy winner, a Hall of Famer, and 9-time Pro Bowl selection wide receiver with me. Tim Brown is here. Tim, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here, Randy.
Now, you had, what, 16 years in the NFL?
17
years.
with the Raiders.
16 with the Raiders.
One with Tampa.
And one with my Tampa Bay Bucks. Give me a little overview. What are some of the highlights and lowlights of being a pro athlete like that?
I think certainly playing the sport you love, was definitely a highlight, and being able to go out there in front of Raider Nation for 16 years, man, and perform and have the relationship that I have with the fans there, I think is really uncommon these days, where athletes don't really connect like that with fans. So I think for me that was pretty much the high. The money and all that stuff is what it is, but there are people making a lot more money doing a lot less dangerous stuff than what we're doing. The lows, I guess, would be, the time constraints and things of that nature, where you have to be away from your mom and your dad and even your kids during training camp and those kind of things. And that's why you see so many people, once they get families, it's hard for them to really stay at that high level or even play, because they choose to leave being a grown man, having somebody coming to tell you to go to bed at 10 o'clock it's a tough thing to do. So.
Yeah, I didn't handle that very well in college, and I wasn't even an athlete, right? You've got a book called The Making of a Man. You're talking about faith, matters of faith.
Yeah, I think, Randy, I'm born and raised in Church of God in Christ, was taught well, so it wasn't a matter of me learning what God was about, what faith was about. It was really about me making a decision to walk right. Now, that being said, there was still a lot to learn, but I knew the basics of what I needed to do, but it just became so increasingly tough. It's like, you get to college and you think, okay, well, let me get my degree, and then I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna be a deacon in the church. I'm gonna marry my high school sweetheart. I'm gonna have 6 kids. I'm just gonna move on, And all of a sudden, this little coach comes in and starts telling you can be the best player in the country. And 2 years later, he makes you the best player in the country, So now you got a Heisman Trophy. It's like, well, maybe I can go play in the NFL. And now you find yourself playing in the NFL, and life just sort of takes you on a different journey. And and I kept saying, I need to get there, and then you start to experience the LA life, and the beautiful women and the parties and all that stuff, and you say, I'll get there tomorrow.
Is that what it was? Was faith always something that you figured you would just kind of get around to when you were not having fun anymore?
Well, not necessarily when I wasn't having fun anymore, but there was going to be a day when I was just going to say no more, and I was going to, but I thought it would happen at 23, 24. I really thought that at that age that I would be, tired of doing the things that I was doing, but it just seemed to keep getting better, and that's what the enemy is, The enemy is not going to, keep you locked in with something you don't like. He's going to keep you locked in with something that's appeasing to you. And for me, it was beautiful women, and having basically the opportunity to pick and choose who you wanted to be with, and doing what you wanted to do. So, and it was really when I saw the hurt that I was causing in these women that I realized it. And that's when I got to the point when I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I, cut myself shaving because I couldn't, turn the lights on, literally.
Really?
And, it got that bad for me.
So you couldn't face yourself?
Couldn't face myself, no. I really could not face myself, because I knew that I wasn't being the man that God had wanted me to be.
How did that turn around?
Well, it's just, you just get to the point where you can't do it anymore. I was dating this one young lady, and she was on her way to a secular music career, and I was at the point where I was, wanting to be saved, and we just wasn't jiving, and finally one day you just say, I can't do this anymore. So you break up with her, and I was here at my mom's house, man, in Dallas, in Duncanville, Texas, and I rolled out of bed June 26, 1996, never would forget it. Rolled out of bed in the middle of the night, just said, Lord, I can't do it no more. I can't do it. I need your strength to be able to do what I'm talking about doing. because trying to live right in an NFL locker room is not a very easy thing to do. People are not going to allow that to happen per se. They're going to try their best to bring you down. And I needed the strength and his power to be able to guide me through. And I had a great relationship with my teammates. I was a captain already. So I had that leadership, but now I'm talking about a different kind of leadership.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about what they do off the field, you know, and people don't want you to mess with what they do off the field.
Sure.
But by the grace of God, man, you know, it was by trial and by fire. You know, I mean, there were guys who called me out, Tim Brown, who you think you are? You know better than what we are.
Yeah.
You know, that same person though, a year later was saying, man, what do you have? Because I want that.
That's what I'm wondering. Because so you're one Tim Brown 1 year, and you go back to training camp, and you're another Tim Brown, and they got to be looking at you like, dude,
like you
we
lost
know
your
what you like. Well, yeah,
like you lost your mind, and that's why, you know, God has to give you the grace and the wisdom of how to do things, and because I think if you go too cold turkey or you turn too much the opposite way, then they think, oh, wait a minute, I can't do this. I can't make a change like that.
Yeah, it's got to be real.
Right. So, you know, I think for me, you know, one of the big things for me was cursing. I didn't feel as if I could lead men if I was cursing and doing it, and that was a big thing for me. And you know, I was able to conquer that. And that was the first thing that guys noticed. Like, look, dude, you know, I haven't heard you say this and say that. And,
Yeah,
you know,
so they noticed. Yeah,
you know, and that's, you know, it wasn't a matter of I went in there with my Bible beating folks over the head.
Right.
I let folks come to me, and when they asked me questions, now that was my opportunity to jump in and tell my story, to tell what I did in my young LA days, to tell some of the things that I struggled with, and people couldn't believe. I mean, the older I got, the more people couldn't believe that I actually cursed, because there's no way you ever cursed. You know, there's no way you ever did this or ever did that. But but to me, it was just the grace of God that allowed me to be able to handle that situation with so many different men, all walks of life, white, black, Mexican, you know, big, fat, you know, ugly, pretty, whatever you want to say. I had all those men in the palm of my hands, and whatever I asked them to do, they would do.
So you basically split your career, right?
Yes.
Compare those, the early years and the later years. For you, not just on the external, but for you, what was your fulfillment, your joy, your peace in the early versus the late?
You know, early in my career, I was obviously very excited, you know, to be in the NFL and to be playing. You know, I tore my knee up my second year, so I missed that year. And at that point, I don't know what kind of career I'm going to have, because the doctors are telling me, hey, we don't know how long this knee is going to last, so you need to work on, you know, that Notre Dame degree, you need to put it to use. So I really started to focus more on, you know, businesses and things of that nature, because I didn't know how long my knee would last.
Yeah.
Well, a year or two later, I made the Pro Bowl again, so I started to feel pretty good about myself. Then that was at kick return. Then 2 years later, I made the Pro Bowl for the first time as a receiver. And so that early part of my career was it taught me a lot about myself, to be able to mentally and physically come back from a big injury, and to be able to not only come back, but to come back to a very high level and play this game taught me a lot. But at the same time, man, it was tumultuous for me. It was, I mean, I was dealing with so much stuff on the inside. And, you know, what you think is fun, you know, when you look back on it, it's really sad what you were doing. Even though it wasn't like I was twisting arms, and most of the time it was at the behest of these women that these things were happening. But at the same time, it's almost embarrassing, some of the things that you were doing, and things that you absolutely cannot be proud of. And when I tell these stories, or when I tell anything about them, I never say it in a bragging way, because to me, there's nothing to brag about. It's really sad. It showed a lot of lack of control for a man that, you know, shouldn't have been in that situation. So that part of my career, the early part of my career, really the LA part of my career, because once I got to LA, you know, once I got to Oakland, really things, I saw life totally different. I'm not in LA anymore. You're not in that situation. So it is different, but it's like immature and mature.
Right.
That's how, you know, the best way to explain it. I mean, I was just so immature, doing all the things immature men would do.
Right.
And once I got to Oakland, it's like everything flipped, man, and I saw life totally different. because I saw it from a spiritual realm now.
A lot of good things come out of that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I continued to play well at a high level because that was a fear. It's like, Lord, if I change, can I still make that move on the field? Like, can I still have that intensity that I used to have when I used to curse a guy out and that would get me pumped up? Can I still do that?
And did you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was able to play at a high level and never use any foul language on a football field. If you could believe that. But it was
for a
possible.
Raider, that's pretty impressive.
For a Raider, that's really unimaginable, for real. But yeah, man, I think the satisfaction I got out of the latter part of my career, because now I realize that all that I had gone through and where I was at this particular point wasn't for me to make the Hall of Fame. But it was for me to have a platform, because you say you're a 9-time Pro Bowler, you say you got 1,094 catches and almost 15 and 20,000 all-purpose, adding everything up. People got to listen to that. If you like football, you're going to listen to these stories.
Sure.
So now I get to hook people in with the football, those who want to be hooked in by that, and now I can drop the spiritual knowledge that God has given me.
And what is that message?
That message is, try as we may, as men, no matter how rich or how poor you are, how strong or how weak you are, if you're not living for God, you're wasting your life.
Go Get It, The Making of a Man by Tim Brown. Be sure to check out Tim when he's on Life Today. That's at lifetoday.org.